Welcome to Friday. It's July 7th, 2023. Your Day Weather Podcast being brought to you by Cowboy State Daily. It's a tale of two air masses. We'll talk about this a little bit in detail. We talked a little bit about this yesterday, but over the next week, maybe even a little bit longer than that, we have two major players in the weather across the North American continent. And both aren't going to be moving very much. So the pattern is kind of set here for a little bit. Yes, there'll be daily differences, but the overall writing message is that we've got a big low pressure system, a large one, up in Hudson Bay, Canada, that's just going to kind of spin around up there for a while. It's an unusually strong and cold system for this time of year to be so persistent, but it's up there. We also have an area of high pressure over the southern and southwestern areas of the United States, which is typical for this time of year. We tend to see it build, and that gets the summer heat going. That's kind of going to be stuck in place for a while. So if you imagine where we are on a map in this region, we're in between these two air masses, and they're going to kind of battle, but it's a stalemate between the two. No one's going to really win. It's going to be kind of a draw. So this means more late-day thunderstorm activity along the eastern slopes and along the divide of the mountains, where the air will be more moist in the east, drier in the western areas, and if you're in between, you get a little bit of both. So this is going to keep the real extreme summer heat contained in the far south and the southwest areas of the U.S. Any persistent heat that comes up from the south and west, further north and east, while it will come in surges, it's not going to be able to maintain itself. So temperatures in many areas along and east of the divide will continue to not get too hot for at least too long. And this is giving us a lot of gray skies. It felt like in many areas across the region yesterday, it felt like fall. It looked like we were in October or early November with the gray skies, and you see some shape of these waves, lenticular clouds, because the winds aloft very strong for this time of year, causing a lot of gray skies and cool conditions. Not feeling like July at all. As we take a look at the satellite imagery this morning, the thunderstorms that developed on the lee of the Rockies yesterday, moving out into the Plain States. So more rain coming into parts of the Corn Belt this morning, and these will re-blossom into showers and thunderstorms this morning and later today in the Midwest. You can still see low upslope clouds hung up along the eastern plains of Colorado into the high plains region and then clear over to areas west. Now, as we take a look at the overall pattern, I'm going to show you a map today that going forward in time isn't going to change much. That red arrow there showing the clockwise rotation of air around the high in the desert southwest, pushing heat into the western slopes of Colorado, into Utah, Nevada, the western slope areas, while this low up in Hudson Bay is going to continue to pump in cooler air in from the north and northwest, and on the ground, return flow at the surface comes in from the east upslope into the region. Now, to overlay this on top of the topography is important. Topography is extremely important in this part of the world. I mean, for obvious reasons. We got a lot of topography, right? But we have a large change in elevation from areas in the Rockies to the plains. And when you move air upwards, and when I go back to this arrow here from the yellow arrow, when surface winds are coming in any easterly direction, whether it's southeast, whether it's from the due east, or from the northeast, this topographical map, you can see the shading. This is an elevation. So the lower elevations of the Gulf Coast and the Midwest and the northern plains, when air is forced up, when air is rising along the terrain, it doesn't matter whether it's the plains gradually sloping or the higher rocky mountains or the higher ridges and plateaus, when air is forced up mechanically, it will cool, and it may cool and condense in the clouds and precipitation. So if you have this persistent pattern of that yellow arrow, which is what we've had here lately, well, more than 3 weeks, and this pattern remains stuck, you're just not going to change the overall weather equation much. So this kind of looks like a battle plan, doesn't it? We've got the army of the red coming up from the southwest, the cool, moist winds coming in from the east, and the colder air aloft coming in from the northwest. And it all is just kind of converging in this higher plains and Rocky Mountain region right here. So when you have this stalemate, you're going to have a very persistent pattern. So here's your shower and thunderstorm forecast for late this afternoon and evening along the slopes and along the divide. This is where the severe weather threat today is. It's more shifting to the south and east. This is what it looks like for tomorrow. Again, about the same pattern, and the severe weather threat does extend back up north along the Front Range a little bit more. General thunderstorm activity elsewhere. And then this is what it looks like for Sunday. Now for Sunday, some of that drier air does get pushed in, and we don't see maybe as many thunderstorms as we get into Sunday and Monday. More of a general thunderstorm pattern here. So as we go through the weekend, along and east of the divide, afternoon and evening showers and storms, the most today and Saturday, less on Sunday. Temperatures, well, you can kind of see how this plays out on the ground when I just showed you all those conditions aloft. Temperatures relative to the 30-year average still are very cool along and east of the divide and out into the plains. So this is today, this is Saturday, this is Sunday. So you can see how persistent the patterns are. So you're kind of stuck wherever you are on this map in basically the same pattern through the upcoming weekend. Now by Monday, this is by Monday, notice it starts to warm up some. But look at this. Up here in Canada, there's more cooler air to reload to come down here later. So any warm up along and east of the divide will be temporary, transient. You get warm for a couple of days, then you cool off again. This is the upper level map for Monday. Look, it's about the same. And so we have the high in the southwest, we have the Hudson Bay low. The two air masses are kind of battling out and we're stuck in the middle. This is for Monday. This is for Friday. Between Monday and Friday, there is extremely little change in the weather pattern. Subtle changes, but nothing really major. Things are just not moving along. The high pressure gets stretched along the south, containing the heat down there, but really you can divide the country here. South of that line, hot and humid, especially in the southern coastal areas. Hot in the desert southwest, but we do see some monsoonal moisture coming in for thunderstorms as we get going into the middle parts and the end of next week. This is what the 10-day forecast looks like. There'll be more rain coming in from the Corn Belt, and you can see where the rain wants to be. Along and east of that line, where the Hudson Bay influence is coming in and the drier conditions under the heat dome of the high pressure in the southwest. You see this little finger of shower and thunderstorm activity getting more active into Mexico, Arizona, and southwest New Mexico, especially late next week, next weekend, and beyond. And you can see that in the precipitable water forecast. This is for July 19th. Here's the monsoonal moisture right here, finally extending and getting up further north into the desert southwest and parts of the Rockies as we look a little bit further down the road. Have yourself a good weekend ahead. We'll see you on Monday.